Great questions from the panel as well. And next up is Exosonic.
Cool. Thanks, Asher. And nice job, Dave. Appreciate the presentation. So my name is Norris T, CEO and co-founder of Exosonic, and our vision is to provide supersonic transportation everywhere. Next slide, please. And the way that we're doing this is by developing the world's first quiet supersonic airliner to mute the sonic boom. So our aircraft will cruise at Mach 1.8, carry 50 to 70 passengers over a range of 5,000 nautical miles. So that's like saying you can go from San Francisco to London in roughly 5.5 hours versus 11 that it is today. And by muting the sonic boom, we enable global supersonic access. Next slide. And despite the pandemic, we've actually gotten some good commercial traction. We've got a letter of interest from a major international airline, and we continue dialogues with our engine OEM that we've been talking to for years now. Next slide. And in addition, to augment our business, we have US Air Force interests. In fact, we've been granted $1.3 million in Air Force contracts for derivative versions of our supersonic airliner. Our primary customer is go back, please. Our primary customer is the Presidential Executive Airlift Directorate, where we're developing an executive transport version of our airliner, so top US leaders can get around the world in half the time, and also a cargo troop transport version, so that, for example, special operations can get their troops and cargo to address time-critical situations. Next slide. So we understand that developing a supersonic airliner is a monumental task. And so that's why we're taking a stepping stones approach to our vehicle development, where we develop a series of vehicles that help de-risk the development of the airliner. And that's actually what we want to talk with you all today, is the supersonic drone. Next slide. So the main purpose of the supersonic drone is to demonstrate some key technologies of Exosonic, principally low boom supersonic flight. And we believe we can develop this aircraft in roughly by 2024, costing $40 million. And we've looked at other comparable aircraft developed by other aircraft companies as a baseline. And we believe that we can sell this to military for these sample applications. And so there are two principal use cases that we've identified and have Air Force interest with. One is a supersonic test bed, which would be for the base model of our supersonic UAV demonstrator. And you can imagine that, for example, the Air Force wants to test the latest flight software for a new supersonic fighter. And then they can just put that into our supersonic UAV and test it out on the field without putting a pilot's life at risk. Now, the second application, which could be a derivative version of the UAV, is for penetrating ISR. And in this case, this aircraft can fly quickly in and out of an enemy territory. And if equipped with, say, an HPM or high power microwave emitter, it can fry enemy electronics and their defense weapons and render them basically useless against our other forces. And so this aircraft can come in and quickly get out while disabling enemy defenses. Next slide. And you might be wondering, is there even a market for large military UAVs? And in fact, there is. It's a $50 billion market. And some of the tailwinds for this is that the Reaper and Predator drones are being retired. That's because of what the US government believes will be the future threat, which are near-peer threats such as China or Russia. No longer will we be battling, say, terrorists in the Middle East, where they can't have the firepower to shoot down those Reapers and drones. And so with these near-peer threats having more capabilities to take on these UAVs, we need to develop new UAVs with better capabilities. And that's where we think the supersonic drone can fit that niche as well. So we project roughly 20 to 25 units to be sold annually, costing roughly $10 million, which represents a $200 to $250 million annual UAV revenue opportunity starting in 2025. Next slide. And our team has deep supersonic experience. I myself was a propulsion engineer before starting this company, and I worked on a low boom aircraft demonstrator at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Then there's my CTO and co-founder, Tim McDonald, whose PhD is in aerospace engineering, And he's developed a lot of the tools that we use to design the airliner that would fit right in with developing the supersonic UAV as well. And Bob Sandusky is truly a rarity in the aerospace engineering world. I mean, he's already went from concept to flight test for 2 Mach 2 supersonic fighters, the YF-23 and the F-20 Tiger Shark. In addition to us, we have a team of 5 full-time employees and 4 part-time senior consultants. Next slide. So what we're asking the panelists today is that, one, our objective is to develop the supersonic UAV to de-risk our core technology while providing a valuable service to the U.S. Air Force. And so what we're hoping is that we can work with you and develop our notional requirements of the UAV. Secondly, if you have a customer or end user in mind, it'd be great to work with them for our SBIR Directive Phase 2. And lastly, if you know any other federal agencies, we would love to talk to them about the supersonic UAV. Thanks again, and we look forward to hearing your comments and questions.
Perfect. Opening up to panelists. Any questions you have for Exosonic?
Hey Norris. I'm just curious, outside of government, have you guys figured out a business model to make supersonic viable from a market perspective?
For the UAV or for the airliner?
For either.
Yeah. So actually, interestingly, I think the UAV, we've hit a new commercial use case, which is adversary air. So there's a lot of privately owned companies that have jets, more or less, that are used to train the military, whether it be US or international militaries in air defense and air tactics. So that's a civilian use case for a supersonic UAV as well. And we have conversations with a few of them.
Hey Norris, where are you guys today as far as a proof of concept or model, or
Yep.
how far along are you?
Yeah, so we've been working on the airliner development for the past 2 or so years. And so we've gone through 6 iterations, and we're going to close that design out by Q2 of this year. And that's going to culminate into a conceptual design review, in addition to a low-speed wind tunnel test to test out the airliner. And then we've done some work on the UAV. Right now, it's a lot of business development. And once we close up the airliner, we're going to switch all of our engineering resources to focus on the UAV and really bring that to flight over the next couple of years.
Hey, Norris, I have a quick question. I'm curious in the difference between the military and the commercial markets. So the airliner approach is a substantial effort to type certify that platform for use, especially carrying people. Yep. Does the drone concept distract you from that? They're 2 very different things.
Yeah, we don't think so, because there's a lot of technology that needs to be de-risked in a smaller platform. Like if we were to develop an airliner as our only product, I mean, that's already a multi-billion-dollar endeavor in itself. And it would take a lot of cash to get there. And we think the supersonic UAV is a very cost-efficient way to prove out some of our fundamental technologies and de-risk the technical side. And as we mature our aircraft concepts, we can start to work on the regulatory side, which is more on the passenger-related parts later on. But we are in discussions with the FAA and other civil aviation authorities about it. Good question, though.
Hi, how differentiated is your technology from what else is emerging right now in the sector?
Yeah, so for the supersonic UAV, there is no known supersonic UAV out there that's public. So there's not really a competition per se. For the supersonic airliner, we're the only airliner company working on low boom, which is to essentially shape the vehicle so that it can mute the sonic boom to allow for supersonic overland flight. And those are the 2 ways that we're different from competitors out there.
Hey, Norris, one more quick question with what you just said. How does so there are no supersonic, at least in the white world, right? No supersonic drones, right. But your competition would also be satellites, correct? Because Reapers, Predators, Global Hawks, those are high and very slow. They can stay on target for up to a day. You're going to zoom over the target in a few seconds. So is your competition really the cost difference between having a satellite do the work for you?
Yeah, so you're probably familiar that there are some things that satellites cannot do, right? Which is actually get signal intelligence or electronic intelligence as it flies into enemy territory. So there's some applications where our aircraft are served as a loyal wingman type concept, right? Where it will fly with, say, an F-35, but lead the charge in a way, and go activate the enemy defenses, collect that signal intelligence, and then relay that out to the greater network. So that way the F-35 is cognizant of what threats lie ahead. And that's a really applicable way that satellites cannot do.
Are you participating in Skyborg?
We are in conversations with AFRL to be a part of that, but we would be like next gen Skyborg is the idea.
So I guess the follow-up to thread is, how do you guys kind of look at yourself in terms of long-term momentum? It seems like you're a gap fill to hypersonic. So does in your mind, does the market sustain past hypersonics, and then do you just convert into trying to figure out the commercial market where, you make your money on passenger flights, or how does that end up working? Because it seems that the value proposition that you're providing is one that's compared to current baseline, but at what point does supersonic become worthwhile in conjunction with hypersonic?
Well, I think hypersonics offers a different value proposition altogether. I used to work on some hypersonics with air breathing propulsion applications, and those types of vehicles make for very, very thin vehicles that are really hard to put any passengers in. As far as I'm aware, scramjets have, the longest running ones have only been 6 minutes, and that's just basically an engine with wings. And then to go the extra mile of putting passengers on that, I think that's probably 30 or 40 years out. So I think supersonic passenger travel is the most near-term technically feasible solution to faster travel in general.
Sure. I get that on passengers. So I'm thinking drone, right? So drone probably gets encroached by hypersonic fast.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure of any hypersonic air breathing propulsion system that actually returns back to base. I think most of them are kind of go in and go out and don't return.
Thanks, Norris. That was excellent. And thank you, panelists, for all your questions. We're moving on to vocal